Three young women are on what seems like a farewell trip on a sailboat. They laugh and talk about how they are becoming grown-up women. Later, they go out on deck and raise their glasses to the future under the stars. As they enjoy their drinks under the city lights, the night sky suddenly glows with a strange green aurora. Right after that, the boat's systems start to fail, lights blink, the GPS shuts off, and they hear an odd noise. One of the women tries to call for help, but sees her friend Loli passed out through the cabin window. Then, the door slams shut by itself, trapping her. She looks through the door and sees their other friend, Tati, unconscious as well. At the same time, a massive blackout hits the city nearby. The streets become chaotic, filled with angry people holding signs and banging pots, demanding electricity. The whole area is in darkness, and people are protesting loudly. Three men stuck in traffic talk about their lives and the country's problems. One of them is upset that after 20 years of living abroad, he has come back to Argentina only to face the same protests he once left. They eventually arrive at a mechanic's garage where an older man, Vicente, is watching the news. The TV reports a big blackout, a fire at a local power station, and a possible asbestos leak. Asbestos is a dangerous substance that can float in the air and cause death easily. In the garage basement, middle-aged friends Lucas, Tano, Omar, Russo, and Juan gather for their regular card game. Omar, lost in old memories, puts on a strange mask and walks upstairs. The rest keep playing, sipping whiskey and joking like usual. Their long friendship gives them comfort, even as the emergency outside grows worse. During the game, Juan checks his phone and sees messages from his ex-wife Elena, including her location, but he ignores them. Suddenly, the lights go out, leaving them in the dark. They try to use their phones, but all of them are dead, even ones that had full battery. Their flashlights also don't work. Then, Russo hears loud, strange metal-like banging sounds. Soon after, Tano's wife Ana calls and says something has happened to Vicente. He collapsed suddenly. The men try to go to him, thinking it could be a heart attack. But through the glass window, they see white flakes falling. It's summer, so it can't be snow. They remember the news about the fire and asbestos leak. Tano wants to open the door, but Ana warns that the air could be dangerous. They lock all the doors and windows to keep the toxic air out. The temperature inside starts dropping fast. Russo becomes very anxious about his family and runs outside despite his friend's warnings. He breathes in the toxic air and dies quickly while his friends watch in shock through the window. They hear the metal sounds again and find a hidden door to the garage. A girl's voice calls out for help. She says she's freezing and claims to be a delivery person bringing the whiskey Russo had ordered. But Lucas recalled in Russo's app the delivery person was listed as a man. The girl says she was fixing her bike nearby, saw Vicente collapse, and then hid in the garage. Tano doesn't want to let her in, but Ana and Juan convince him. After opening the door, Tano and Juan use the same secret passage to reach the garage. Juan wants to get the car keys from the office, but Tano stops him, saying he needs protection from the air. Juan argues that the girl seemed fine, but Tano points out that she had covered herself, which may have saved her. They think snow particle might be poisonous. They wrap themselves in plastic sheets and break a window to get the keys while being careful not to breathe in the falling particles. But when they try to start the car, it doesn't work either. The group sits together in dim light, reading old books by lanterns to figure out what is going on. Tano explains that they may have been hit by an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to destroy all electronics, even those that were turned off or unplugged. They aren't sure if it came from a solar storm or something more dangerous like a nuclear bomb, but everything seems to have shut down completely. They get a brief moment of hope when Juan notices a light in a nearby house. It belongs to Don Alessio, the neighborhood baker. Excited, they try to warn him not to open the window, but just as he appears, he opens it, and they watch in horror as he suddenly dies, his arm hanging in a strange way. A few moments later, his wife comes to check on him and suffers the same fate. Horrified and deeply worried about his daughter Clara and ex-wife Elena, Juan decides to risk everything and leave the house to find them. He ignores Tano's warnings and insists on going out into the dangerous cold. Everyone works together to prepare Juan for the journey. They wrap him in layers of waterproof clothing, seal plastic bags around his boots, and give him an old gas mask that Tano had stored away. But the filters in the mask are old, and they're not sure if it will really protect him. Suddenly, the calm is broken when Omar, feeling ignored and jealous, points a rifle at Tano and demands the mask, wanting credit for the idea of the suit. But Tano stays calm, telling Omar his gun isn't even ready to fire. Omar eventually gives up, embarrassed and silent. Once dressed in his homemade protective suit, Juan takes one last breath and steps outside. The city is completely still. Snow covers the ground, and the silence is eerie. He walks past frozen cars and the lifeless, snow-covered bodies of people, including Russo, and even some police. Juan keeps moving through the cold, quiet streets with abandoned car, hoping to find his family before it's too late. The city is now fully covered in snow, looking like a frozen, lifeless wasteland. Abandoned cars line the streets, and frozen bodies lie scattered around. Juan walks carefully, moving past the wreckage in cold silence. Inside one car, he finds someone who looks either unconscious or dead. Then he sees something even worse, a dead body tied high up on a traffic light pole, frozen in a disturbing position. Back in the house, Anna wakes up in a dim room, visibly worried. She goes to the kitchen and starts to make tea, but Tano quickly stops her, alarmed that she didn't check if the water was safe. He fears the water might be poisoned too. Tensions build as the group argues over the few supplies they have left. The safety of the tap water is questioned, and they realize they have only a few bottles of clean water and drinks. Inga suggests going out to search for more, but Aina argues there are no open stores left. They argue, and Omar sides with Inga. Tano, angry, warns Omar that he might throw him out if he doesn't stop. Juan continues walking through the icy streets alone. He sees more frozen bodies half buried in the snow and checks his map before heading toward a subway station entrance. In the house, Inga talks with Omar. She misses her brother, and Omar shares his fear for his children back in the US. They both feel like outsiders and connect over their shared feelings. Meanwhile, Lucas and Tano focus on making the house safer and more secure. Juan follows the train tracks and eventually finds an abandoned train. There are more frozen bodies nearby. Then he sees some survivors inside the train, banging on the windows and asking for help. Juan enters the train and talks to them, but he realizes he can't do much. Out of pity, he gives them a bottle of water and promises he'll try to find more help. Back in the house, trust begins to break down. Inga, who has military experience and knows how to use guns, becomes more upset due to the cold and lack of plans. She tries to leave, but the door is locked. Tano then shows the group a homemade gas mask he secretly built. He volunteers to go outside to the nearby fire station to look for more supplies, especially masks, using Inga's bicycle. Omar accuses him of planning to leave them behind, but Tano insists the house belongs to him and he won't run away. When Inga brings the bicycle, they notice its taillight still works. Tano checks and realizes it uses an old-style incandescent bulb instead of modern LED. Incandescent bulbs work by heating a wire filament, and that's why it still works. Tano then uses pliers to connect wires from a car battery to an old cassette player on a table. The record begins to play distorted music. Everyone watches in awe as Tano smiles proudly at the sound. Meanwhile, Juan arrives at a building where a white van has crashed into the front lobby. He looks inside the van, then steps into the building. Inside are more frozen bodies, and even a dead dog inside a helmet. He walks through the quiet halls and briefly lowers his gas mask. As he climbs the stairs, he walks down a dark hallway and sees a small group of neighbors holding a candlelit prayer meeting. Then he finds an apartment messy, but seemingly empty. It belongs to Elena, his ex-wife. He searches through it and finds a framed picture of his daughter Clara. She is the same girl who had been on the sailboat earlier at start of the story. Suddenly, a man appears. Juan panics and grabs him, demanding to know where Clara is. The man says he was only there to get medicine, sent by Elena, and wasn't trying to steal. The neighbors from the prayer group arrive and ask Juan to let the man go. Just then, Elena arrives and is shocked Clara isn't with Juan. She sends the others away and focuses on the situation. She tells Juan that Clara disappeared after going to a classmate's party. She insists she sent Juan a message with Clara's location, but he says his phone died and never got it. Angry and desperate, Juan tells Elena he's going to the school to find Clara. Elena wants to go with him, but they only have one gas mask, so Juan tells her to stay inside and not open the door for anyone. As Juan prepares to leave, a group of desperate neighbors blocks the apartment entrance. They accuse him of being immune to the toxic snow and demand to see his mask. The situation turns tense. A bald man steps forward, leading the group and refusing to let them pass unless Juan shows gas mask to them. The scene quickly becomes dangerous. Juan pulls out a gun and aims it at the bald man to force their way through. In the panic, he and Elena shove through the crowd as chaos breaks out. People scream and run through the hallways and stairwells, pushing past each other in fear. The panic turns violent, and gunshots ring out as people clash. Juan and Elena manage to lock themselves inside an empty apartment. Inside, Elena finds a terrifying sight, a frozen corpse lying stiff in the bathtub. Juan urges her to stay calm and search for waterproof clothing. From the window, he spots a van parked outside, offering a possible escape. Realizing time is running out, Juan gives Elena the gas mask and a bag, and tells her to escape by jumping onto the van below. He plans to stay behind. The bald man leading the group outside figures out Juan has run out of bullets. As Elena successfully jumps to the van and runs off, Juan feels relief but accepts he may not survive. Suddenly, he notices a plastic bag and comes up with a desperate plan. As the attackers break into the apartment and prepare to kill him, Juan grabs a piece of furniture, smashes the window, and quickly wraps the plastic bag around his head. As the snow burst inside the room, the captors, terrified by his sudden act, flee in fear. Juan then follows Elena's path, jumping out of the window toward the van. The jump succeeds, but Juan struggles to breathe due to the plastic bag and faints, expecting death. However, he later wakes up inside the van, shocked to be alive. The people who rescued him are wearing firefighter-style protective suits. The rescuers turn out to be Tano and the rest of the group. Tano had found working masks and gear at a nearby fire station and brought them back. The van they're using was an old model found in Vicente's garage. Since it didn't rely on modern electronics, it still worked. On their way to find Juan, they had spotted Elena and picked her up too, arriving just in time to save him. However, no one noticed that strange red meteorites were falling towards Earth from the sky above. Juan and Elena are brought back to Ana's house, where everyone gathers to plan their next move. They attempt to use the radio to reach someone, but it fails. Despite everything, Juan still wants to take the car to search for his daughter Clara at her school. However, Tano refuses, arguing that their priority must now be the safety of the group, not individual concerns. Omar tries to speak up, but before anything else happens, Lucas spots a figure approaching through the window. Someone is following their tire tracks. They all rush to the garage and point their weapons at the approaching man. He identifies himself as Benito, a hardware store owner they recognize. Benito explains he is part of a nearby group of survivors whose supplies are running low. He ventured out alone, fully geared, hoping to find help. While Tano refuses to bring the other survivors into their house, fearing that in desperate times, people act only for themselves, still gives Benito some food and water from their own recent supply run. As Benito leaves, Omar suddenly betrays the group and steals their car, speeding off without warning. Juan and Elena don't wait any longer. Determined to find their daughter, they begin preparing to leave. Inga also gets ready to search for her brother. Omar, after driving only a short distance, is distracted by the sight of more red meteorites falling from the sky. Losing focus, he crashes the car into a shop. As night falls, a snowstorm worsens. Meanwhile, Juan and Elena try to start different cars along the street in hopes of reaching Clara's school faster. Unfortunately, none of the vehicles are old enough to function. Soon, they hear vehicles belonging to looters and quickly hide in one of the cars. They manage to avoid detection and slip away. The city has now become lawless, with people fighting, stealing, and even killing over supplies. Eventually, the looters also spot Omar among the chaos. Juan and Elena reach Clara's school. Elena goes to the principal's office to look up Clara's friend's address, while Juan heads to the school parking lot to search for a working car. Back at their base, Inga returns. She confesses that the original delivery was meant for her brother, but she took his shift only to later find out that he's dead. She is devastated by guilt. Tano, placing his trust in her, leaves her in charge of the house while he goes out again with Lucas to find more supplies. Inside the school, Juan finally finds a working car. Just as he does, he's overwhelmed by strange visions, possibly glimpses of the future. At the same time, Elena hears strange noises echoing through the building. She follows the sounds to a restroom and discovers a boy trapped inside a stall, banging on the door. They try to quiet him, but he refuses to stop until Juan slaps him to get his attention. The boy introduces himself as Pablo. They learn that Pablo had been locked inside the school bathroom for 2 days as a prank by other students. When Juan tells him about the toxic snowfall and the people who have died, Pablo is skeptical. But when he sees the frozen bodies of those same students outside in the playground, he finally believes them. He doesn't know Clara, but he does recognize her friend. Loli, her brother, was one of the kids who locked him up. Pablo agrees to tell them where Loli lives, but only if they take him home. Elsewhere, Tano and Lucas stop at the fire station to collect more tools. There, they run into other survivors, including Benito. He introduces them to Roberto, another member of the group. They explain that looters are now raiding every location they find. To protect themselves, a committee was formed among survivors, and they've decided to barricade the streets. They give Tano and Lucas 24 hours to decide whether to allow use of their garage. If not, the committee will act on its own terms. Juan, Elena, and Pablo arrive at Pablo's house. However, when they arrive, they find that both of his parents are dead. The sight devastates Pablo, and his condition quickly worsens. Back at Anna's house, Tano and Anna argue about whether to let more survivors use their garage for shelter. Anna, compassionate and soft-hearted, wants to help. Tano is more cautious, warning that it's only a matter of time before people start turning on each other for food and water. Suddenly, Lucas hears a voice on the radio. Tano investigates and hears a man named Denis broadcasting from Uruguay. Denis explains that their country is suffering the same crisis. He says he heard from someone in Brazil that the entire continent is affected. Meanwhile, Juan and Elena, unsure what to do about Pablo's condition, decide to search for medicine at a nearby pharmacy. Outside the building, they encounter a pregnant woman wandering alone. Juan is hesitant to let her in, suspecting danger, but Elena takes pity on her and brings her inside. It turns out to be a trap. The looter ambush them, using the woman as bait. They steal Juan's car keys and lock him and Elena in the bathroom. Luckily, after the looters leave, Pablo manages to get the door open and rescue them. Back at Anna's house, Tano and Lucas climb to the roof to adjust the antenna, hoping to get a signal from Brazil. While doing so, Tano notices something strange. His compass is spinning uncontrollably, indicating that Earth's magnetic field has been disrupted. Juan, Elena, and Pablo, now wearing protective suits, continue their journey on foot. Along the road, they come across a car Juan considers hijacking. But when they see a family with small children inside, he can't bring himself to go through with it. Despite the desperation around him, Juan refuses to lose his humanity. Later, they pass by the same train Juan had discovered earlier, the one where survivors had begged him for help. Now the train is empty. Juan realizes that in the chaos of searching for Clara, he forgot about those people, and they likely perished as a result. With heavy hearts, Juan, Elena, and Pablo return to Anna's house. There, Juan learns that the rest of the group is preparing to leave the city. Tano tries to convince Juan to do the same. He shows him the spinning compass and explains that Earth's magnetic field has failed, no help is coming. He insists that Clara is probably already dead and that Juan should let go, but Juan refuses. Enraged by the suggestion, he insists that he won't leave without his daughter. The group reluctantly agrees that Juan and Elena will split from them and continue their search alone. However, they are unaware that something far worse now lurks outside. Elsewhere in the city, the same pair of looters are relaxing in a car, having just filled up on fuel. When one of them hears a strange noise, he goes to investigate. In the reflection of his helmet, we briefly glimpse a terrifying, unknown creature. Moments later, both looters are swiftly and brutally devoured by this new threat, signaling that something even more dangerous has arrived. After giving Russo a proper burial, tensions rise between Juan and Elena. Elena insists they shouldn't leave Pablo behind, especially now that he's sick, but Juan argues they must prioritize finding their daughter, Clara. Reluctantly, they pull out an old phone book to search for the address of Clara's friend, since the internet is still down and they have no other options. Meanwhile, Tano heads out to a nearby store to gather more food. There, he hears from Inga that Juan has gone off alone to search for Clara. Struck by guilt for abandoning his childhood friend of 40 years, Tano changes his mind. He decides to help Juan find his daughter first only, then will he leave for the island city. Tano finds Juan, and together they drive through the increasingly desolate city. Ahead, they find a blockade made of abandoned cars. While trying to find a way through, several military vehicles approach. Soldiers stop them, warning that the area beyond the bridge is restricted. They promise help is coming and urge them to leave immediately. But something doesn't sit right. Juan and Tano suspect the military is hiding something. Why else would they barricade this area and keep people out? They decide to tail the military convoy discreetly. But the soldiers quickly catch on and open fire on their car. Juan floors the gas, but they lose control and crash into a building. Disoriented, Juan has another wave of strange flashbacks, fragmented visions that seem to be warnings. Then the truth becomes horrifyingly clear. Gigantic spider-like creatures emerge from beyond the barricade, flipping over cars and ambushing soldiers. The monsters cocoon some of them in web-like traps, tearing others apart. Juan and Tano realize this is why the military sealed the zone. They weren't abandoning the people. They were trying to contain something inhuman. As the creatures notice their presence, Juan and Tano dive into the wreckage of their car and lie still. They see a chance guns from fallen soldiers scattered nearby. Juan grabs a weapon, and when one of the creatures comes too close, he shoots it. The creature screeches and collapses, attracting the attention of the others. A horde of them charges toward Juan and Tano. The two flee on foot, dodging death at every corner. One of the creatures even devours the fallen one, showing how brutal they are even to their own. Finally, they reach a large church. Just as they're about to be overwhelmed, a man on the roof hurls a petrol bomb at the pursuing creatures, giving them the chance to rush inside. Inside, they find a group of survivors. A young man named Jorgito introduces himself, along with another named Mickey. To their surprise, Omar is also among them. He immediately mocks Juan and Tano, accusing them of selfishness. The survivors are led by a resolute nun named Sister Risotto. She takes Juan and Tano to the rooftop, where she shows them the sky, still streaked with meteorites. She reveals that these creatures arrived with the meteorites. Tano now grasped the situation. They're not of this world, they're alien, and they're multiplying. If nothing is done, these invaders will wipe out all human life. Juan and Tano are shaken. They need to return home and warn their group immediately, but Sister Risotto warns them against leaving. The creatures are drawn to the slightest noise or movement. Opening the door would put everyone at risk. Like it or not, they must stay the night. Inside, the survivors take turns keeping watch. Juan sits quietly, wrestling with worry over Clara, where she is, if she's safe, or if he's already too late. Later that night, Omar confronts Juan. Their argument escalates. But in a surprising turn, Omar reveals that he knows about a hidden tunnel that runs beneath the city. It might be their only chance to escape or to reach Clara before it's too late. Just then, Juan heard a sound outside. Curious, he stepped out and froze in shock. Thousands of the alien creatures had gathered all around the church. They were everywhere. Their numbers were growing, not shrinking. It was clear now. This church wouldn't protect the survivors for much longer. The survivors didn't argue. Quickly, they began preparing to leave, grabbing what little supplies they had. Juan explained that the creatures seemed to sleep at night. If they moved quietly, this might be their only chance to escape. Among them was a baby. Everyone lined up behind Juan, moving silently through the night. After some time, they found an old tilted bus and used it for cover. Some of the group began digging through a wall nearby, hoping to create an opening to the other side. But then disaster. The baby started crying, loudly. The cry echoed through the silence, and in moments, the creatures were alert. They screeched and began heading toward the noise. Panic spread through the group. Most of the survivors managed to flee, but Juan and 2 others got stuck inside the bus strapped. The creatures swarmed, surrounding them, ready to attack. Then, a loud bell rang from the church tower. Everyone paused. The creatures turned. It was the old couple from the church, the ones who had refused to join the escape. They had stayed behind to save the others. Together, they rang the bell to draw the creatures away. As the aliens turned and rushed back toward the church, the couple scattered oil all around the building. Hand in hand, they looked at each other one last time. The others ran. Juan spotted a large vehicle near the barricaded bridge and rushed to it, but the noise from the engine drew the creatures again. One of them grabbed Tano and dragged him toward the shadows, but just in time, one of the survivors shot the creature and pulled Tano free. Juan jumped into the vehicle, helping the rest climb aboard. They fired back at the approaching monsters as they sped away from the church. Behind them, a massive explosion lit up the night sky. The church was gone, but, thanks to the old couple's sacrifice, the survivors had made it out alive. Juan and Tano finally reached a safe spot and said goodbye to the rest of the group. They returned to their home base to check if everyone there was all right. To Juan's surprise, he received good news. His daughter, Clara, had already arrived. Elena told him Clara had shown up the day before, searching for them. After all the danger and chaos, Juan and Elena could finally relax, knowing their daughter was safe. Meanwhile, the rest of the group was busy preparing to leave for the island city, hoping it would be safer. Just then, Roberto and a group of survivors arrived and offered Tano a deal. They wanted to trade their large home truck, which could hold many people, in exchange for Tano's house and garage. Since Tano's group planned to leave anyway, they agreed. Everyone quickly packed their things into the truck and got ready to move. As they loaded up, Tano noticed something strange. Clara was wearing a protective mask he remembered leaving in the sailboat. He found it odd, but decided it was probably just a coincidence. No one gave it much thought, and the group continued their journey to the island. After driving for hours, they finally reached the sea. But due to major climate changes, the water level had dropped, and the shoreline had shifted. They would need to find another place to launch their boat. During the journey, Clara woke up and asked them to help find her friends, Loli and Tati. When asked how she got there, she claimed she came from her friend's house, not from the sailboat. They also questioned her about the mask, but Clara said she didn't know anything about it and denied wearing it. Everyone thought maybe her memory was affected by stress and didn't question her further. As night approached, they decided to stop at a nearby shopping mall to rest. The mall was full of other survivors, including those Juan and Tano had helped earlier at the church. People were doing what they could to stay positive. Some shared food, others watched movies, and many just enjoyed the break from running. Clara joined a group of young people to relax and play. Meanwhile, Lucas asked Juan why he was acting distant. Juan said that something felt off, as if Clara wasn't really real, and everything around him felt like part of a simulation. But he kept those feelings to himself. Suddenly, Clara had a seizure. She began violently hitting her head, something she had never done before. The others thought it was just the result of being alone and scared for too long. After she calmed down, they laid her down to rest and everyone else went back to sleep. Later, Lucas was playing cards with some of the church survivors. He and a boy named Tony decided to look for alcohol. While searching, Lucas heard a strange sound and noticed that Tony had mysteriously vanished. At sunrise, Juan was woken by a loud sound. Everyone rushed outside. For the first time in many days, the toxic snowfall had stopped. The sun was shining again, clear and bright. People stepped out cautiously and realized it was safe to breathe the air. No one was falling sick. Joy spread through the crowd. After everything they had endured, it finally felt like the nightmare might be over and that the world was beginning to heal. Tano noticed something strange about the Earth's compass. After checking more closely, he realized the magnetic poles had reversed. North had become south, and south had become north. As everyone processed this shocking change, they also realized that Lucas was missing. The group split up and began searching for him around the shopping mall, but he was nowhere to be found. Before they could look further, chaos broke out. A gang of armed men suddenly appeared and started firing at the crowd. Panic spread quickly as people inside the mall screamed and scattered, trying to escape. Juan and Omar stayed behind to protect the others, taking cover and firing back at the attackers. In the gunfight, Juan managed to shoot one of the gang members. One of the attackers opened a trash bin where 2 people were hiding, but surprisingly, he didn't harm them. He just walked away as if he saw nothing. Meanwhile, Tony shouted for help. His friend Mickey had been hit by a bullet. Elena rushed to his side and tried to stop the bleeding, using her medical skills to keep him alive. Just then, Lucas returned, accompanied by a group of soldiers. He said he had reached a highway and called for help. The others were shocked. How did Lucas travel that far so quickly, especially with so many dangers around? When asked, Lucas only said he didn't know how he got there, which made things even more confusing. The remaining survivors from the mall were then guided by the soldiers, who promised to take them to a safer place. As Juan's group left the mall, they saw that the snow had begun melting since the sun returned. Water was flowing again, and lakes were starting to refill. In a separate scene, the mysterious man who spared the two people in the bin was seen walking alone into a dark tunnel. As he passed, the alien creatures lurking inside did not attack him. Instead, they calmly moved aside, clearing a path for him as if they recognized or obeyed him. In next scene, Juan was inside a mall when he heard a soft, familiar voice. It was a woman's voice, whispering from somewhere in his mind, saying she was still there and begging him not to stop looking for her. It was the same woman he had killed before. The voice shook him, and suddenly he woke up injured, lying in a cold, frosty forest. Clara and Tano were there, helping him to stand. Still confused and disoriented, Juan followed them to a military base nearby. At the base, soldiers and survivors were busy. Some were clearing out rubble, while others practiced shooting or repairing equipment. Tano was soon taken into a separate room where military officers explained they needed his help. They knew about his background as an electrical engineer. They showed him an old radio system that could be used to contact survivors around the world. But, to make it work, they needed to reach a part of the city that was still surrounded by dangerous creatures. The officers asked Tano to risk everything for the mission and use a train to get there. Outside, Juan sat with Clara, still haunted by hallucinations and uncertain about what was real. Lucas approached, urging Tano to take the mission, saying it wasn't just about survival, it was a chance to save many others. But Tano wasn't ready to risk his life for something that felt like a suicide mission. Later, Juan and Elena argued. Juan wanted to leave for the island like they had planned, but Elena believed Clara needed the protection and stability of the military base. That night, Juan was approached by a group led by a man known as the Boss. He and his partner told Juan they needed Tano to help retrieve a train engine from a workshop in the city. The tracks near the workshop would bring them close to the building they needed to reach. Juan didn't fully trust them but agreed to consider the mission. By morning, Juan led a small group, including Tano, into the city. They followed the train tracks as helicopters passed overhead. Eventually, they reached the workshop and worked for hours to repair and activate a large red train engine. After a long struggle, the engine roared to life, and they all boarded, heading deeper into the city. When the train could go no further, the group continued on foot. The city was in ruins, showing signs of a massive disaster. Strangely, not a single alien creature could be seen. Everyone was confused and on edge. Part of the group, including Inga, went to inspect another area of the city. There, they discovered a missile and tried calling out to a lone child nearby, but they were soon surrounded by silent, robotic-looking people from every direction. Back at the main location, Juan's group climbed a tall building and used a flare to send a signal. They set up the repaired radio and contacted the base, reporting that the city now seemed safe. The people at the base celebrated the news. Later, Juan and the others noticed a strange, glowing white light in the distance. Juan suggested they send a team to investigate, but the commander refused, saying they would wait until morning. That night, everyone relaxed. Juan, feeling hopeful, played cards and shared drinks with others, just like he had done at the start of the journey. But the peace didn't last. Suddenly, Lucas, acting strangely, stabbed Omar and ran up the stairs. Shocked, Juan and Tano chased after him. They reached the top just in time to see Lucas jump off the building. From above, they saw chaos below. Groups of people acting strangely, all moving toward the glowing white light. Some even started shooting wildly, just like what had happened at the mall. Now, realizing something terrible was happening again, Juan, Tano, and the injured Omar ran back toward the military base. They managed to climb aboard the moving train just in time, joining the others in another desperate escape. As the train rushed toward the army base, Omar suddenly remembered Inga was still missing. Without wasting time, Juan told the others to take the injured Omar back to safety. Juan, along with a soldier, jumped off the train midway. Their mission was to go deeper into the city and bring back anyone who was still missing, including Inga. But what they found as they moved forward left them completely shocked. The same alien creatures that once roamed the city killing people were now walking side by side with humans. And it wasn't just that they were working together, but something was wrong. The humans didn't look normal. Their expressions were blank, their movements stiff. It was as if they weren't in control of their own minds anymore. Juan suddenly felt weird. These were the same scenes he had already lived through in his hallucinations. He turned to the soldier with him and confirmed that this was exactly how he had seen it before in the visions. From a rooftop, they saw a massive gathering below. Thousands of people, along with the bug-like alien creatures, were standing in complete silence, facing a glowing white light. It was as if they were worshipping it. And inside that glowing light was a strange, tall creature. It had 2 legs and dozens of fingers on each hand, moving in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. It looked like this creature was the one controlling everything humans, aliens. Juan scanned the crowd and saw familiar faces, people from the church, survivors he had once fought to protect. Now, They were no longer themselves. Their eyes were lifeless. They had become something else, almost robotic. And then it all made sense to him. His daughter Clara had been behaving strangely ever since he found her. Now he knew why she was one of them. She had already been taken over by whatever this creature was. All this time, from the very beginning, these invisible aliens had been pulling the strings. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the channel. Season 1 of the series, The Eternaut, ends here.